Are you staying in Toronto or are you going to Edmonton? What's the plan here, Jon?
I don't know. I'm just honored that on your 10th anniversary, you were adamant that I'd be the first guest.
Well,
have you been a follower for a long time, Jon, or are you just kind of getting into
this? I just want to know, like, does a bottle of Camus come with that, or how does that work out?
No, nothing really. No acknowledgement whatsoever. No appreciation. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But
no,
hey,
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what we're doing. It's. It's like the league's been on it. They got everything planned out, but I know that unlike regular years where it's all planned out for when you're playing and what's going on. It's I think they're trying to move the games along and not prolong the tournament as long as possible. So I wouldn't be surprised if for whatever reason teams were available and the West went out or extended out later that there's potential you could play a game or two here in Toronto before we head out there.
Coop, I saw your post-game speech after you guys beat Columbus. I thought it was brilliant that you used the term, I think it was 422 days coming. Was that something, obviously, that weighed on you, but if you knew that you were going to get through them, you knew you'd use those exact numbers?
Honestly, I didn't. It didn't come to me till I was sitting in my head during the pause thinking, there's no way we're going to run into Columbus again. Like, there's just no way. Like, all the things with the reseeding, the round-robin play, if you look at all the things that have to come, like all the ducks that have to align for us to play them, the odds had to be minuscule. And sure enough, there we are going to play them again. And it was... It's way easier for me to say right now, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, yes, I'm glad we got to play him again. And it's only easy to say that because we won. But it was a long time coming, and it's something that, I remember that press conference after we lost, and, you just sit there and take question after question after question, and you have to suck up what happened. And we did a lot of planning. I felt like we've learned a ton as a coaching staff and as a team, and our general manager has built us a team, and it all just came together. And trust me, it was not easy. I mean, you go 5 overtimes, and then you got to keep going from there. And it was a tough hurdle to get over, but I'm telling you, I did count the days, and it was. It just felt, I don't know if it was excitement, but I think it was just a ton of relief. Like, you know what, we got our second chance, and when you get that second chance, you better damn make the best of it, and we did.
Coop, you mentioned your general manager and the different players he brought into the roster. How important was that? I watched your game last night, and there just seemed to be a different fight. I mean, you guys, the way you created offense, those tip-in goals, it was just a grinding kind of effort with Kucherov out of the lineup, Stamkos out of the lineup. How important were those guys coming into your lineup to add that different element?
Yeah, like, it's the playoffs. I always say there's teams that, can win in the regular season but may not be suited for the playoffs. And there's teams that I'm telling you that probably barely or don't get into the playoffs that, might have been able to make a run had they got in, or maybe just didn't have enough skill to get in. And then there's those teams that find a balance. And we've, I've been really fortunate to have a lot of the players that we've had here and the goaltenders and whatnot, but it's just finding that balance. And, when we talked about it coming up to the trade deadline, like, what do we need? And, it's not a bad thing to have some players that have a little dirt under the nails. And it, you get some of those guys, and they pull the rest of the guys into the fight. And the other thing is, too, about that is you need to find the chemistry. And, we had Coleman and Gaudreau, and, Bogosian came really late, and Shaddy we had the whole year, and Maroon. But you got to find their spots and their roles for the guys. And I think through the pause, that really benefited us as really, okay, let's try this in our training camp. And then we found kind of that mix, and now the chemistry's hit. And but overall, like, Julian did a great job pulling everybody together.
With Jon Cooper, head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, they got past Boston yesterday. They'll wait to see who they'll play in the conference final, either the Islanders or the Flyers. And you mentioned the character-building moments, and you were talking about that fifth OT win in Game 1 against Columbus, which was maybe the first time in sports history, it literally just shut down the rest of the schedule. There were other teams that were supposed to play, and it was just like, you're not playing because these guys won't stop playing. Take us through, like, the individual intermissions. Once you get to the third or fourth, is there any pep talks at that point, or are you just staying out of the way as a head coach?
Well, it's a couple funny stories. One was the Boston coaches and, like the jokes, because we're all, those, like, in Scotiabank and all those suites down below the stands.
Yep.
So that's where all the coaches' offices are. So that's where the video room. So you're not with your team. You're in those offices. So all the coaches and everybody can really run into each other at all the time, whatever, when everybody's there. So that was kind of the running joke, and we got to overtime, and they kind of made a joke, and I said, well, my experience is it's either going to end in the overtime's end the first couple minutes, or they go super long. And sure enough, that was the running joke with the Boston guys. Well, looks like it's going super long. And as for going in the room, I think I kind of had the same message going in. Like, it was all about don't sacrifice defense to play offense. That was our big message. It's going to come. It's going to come anyway. But every time I went in, there was less and less players. And by the time I went in between the fourth and fifth, I bet you there was only like 4 guys in the room. And they were all getting like IVs or what have you, like rehydrating and stuff like that. So I almost turned around and walked out, but because I'd done it every time, I had to say my speech in front of like 4 or 5 guys. It's funny.
So are they listening, or are they like, are you serious right now? Can you just leave us alone?
Exactly.
Or?
Yeah, I got the megaphone and, sending it into the trainer's room. So we actually had the Leafs room that night, which I thought was great because all the teams are switching locker rooms. So you may be Leafs room one night, Raptors room another night. I think one of the rooms might be the media room. I've never been in it before, but I think they turned that into a locker room, and then obviously the visitors room. So it was that was a good night to have the Leafs room that night.
Cooper, you're looking at this, and you're in the bubble. You're looking at this whole experience. I mean, has it been tough to keep your guys, I don't know, motivated is the wrong word, but the eye on the prize, because you're hearing stories out of the bubble, guys missing their families that we're seeing in the NBA, some of the families coming into the bubble. Like, how is the motivation factor and the focus of your group?
Yeah, so winning helps that, right? So
right.
If you're doing some winning, and so you can kind of overlook that. But I'm not going to say there hasn't been trying times for everyone. And I would say, the hotel we're in, the people have been overly friendly. They're overly accommodating and to what we need, or just to make things just a little bit more like home. And so it's like, don't get me wrong, it's not the most ideal circumstance, but I'm amazed at how this turned out. Like, and it's it's easy for us to say because we're advanced to conference finals, but for somebody to put this together, and I don't think Toronto was on the forefront of bubbles, through the whole pause. I think they came about the city came about within probably 3 weeks to a month beforehand, and for them to put this together, it's been pretty remarkable. And I would say, overall, my guess would be it was a pretty good experience for everybody. And I think once you get down to where we are, it's pretty hard not to be focused now because everything you've done to get there this far. But it's been a pretty cool experience.
With Jon Cooper, head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you've done this without your captain. Steven Stamkos has not been available to you, and Kucherov left yesterday. And I know you said earlier this hour you might have an update on that tomorrow. But we've been kind of joking about the whole unfit to play stuff. And usually you're an open book. You're willing to say what you can say. I mean, you're not going to expose state secrets, so to speak. But have you had to did you have to kind of adjust the way you approach doing media and kind of getting into the finer details of what might be happening behind the scenes, considering the rules and regulations?
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs are always a little different, and sometimes you have a little fun with the media, and guys ask who are in, and I'll make a joke, show up to the game tonight, you'll find out. Obviously, can't do that now, but no, it's during this time. Like, I'm always usually a big believer in just, hey, if somebody's hurt, tell them, and if they're not, they're not. I think it's no surprise that everybody's tested for COVID in here daily, and there's been 0 positive. So I don't expect that to change. All I know is that, for the players on our team that aren't playing, trust me, they want to play. It's, something's wrong with them where they can't. And guys are working hard to get back if they're out. And, we've had a few of them in McDonough and obviously Stammer and Jan Ruda, who's been out. And, hopefully Cooch is going to be okay here. But that's what happens in playoff time. Everybody at some point gets hurt, and usually the teams that can weather through that and stay healthy are standing at the end, and hopefully that'll be us.
We love talking about the interactions between the coach and the refs, especially with the higher octane type of games. What's that like in the bubble? Like, they're in there too. Are you seeing them at dinner later, and you're like, hey, sorry, man, I thought it was offside.
There was one ref you probably didn't want to see the next morning. There was one guy right. After some of that.
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is? So, you're caught in a game, but the bottom line is, like, everybody in the building can hear you. So, like, the guy, I don't know, if there's a camera guy up in row whatever, he can hear exactly what you're saying to the ref. So I don't even know why people have microphones, because everybody can hear it. But it's, to be honest, like, for the first part, like, the refs were not in our hotel, so we didn't see them. And so it wasn't until it came down to this round, the Islanders moved over from the hotel they were at to ours, but so did everybody else. So, like, the TV people, the refs, and everybody. So now, then we ran into it, and there's a Tim Hortons truck. I don't know if they're a sponsor, but they're getting a free plug here. They have a Tim Hortons truck right outside. So a lot of people, that's kind of the meeting point. You go get a coffee, and that's where you run into guys. And so, you have to have a pretty short memory when you go there in the morning, because you're pretty sure to run into one of the refs, either the one that refed your game or the one that's going to.
It's a unique setup, man.
It really is.
That's the way it's working right now.
You know, the one thing I do say, though, like, the refs they're trying to do their job. We're trying to do our jobs. Everybody, like, loves the sport, and we're all having fun with it. You just hope that they're hoping they don't come in between something that's going to happen. And it's funny, like, I never know too if the fans affect games. Do the fans affect a ref? Like,
sure they do.
Yeah, like, it's weird. So you don't, like, it's we had that game 5 against Columbus. I mean, we took 6 minors, and Columbus took 0. And so I'm sitting there thinking, hey, I'm not sitting here, like, we deserved our minors. Trust me. Like, I was shocked they only gave us 6. But, like, if that game was played in a building, would Columbus have ended up with 0? Like, I don't know if that was played in our building. And so it's, I have no idea. But, the refs they're just calling the games, and they call it how they see it. And we got to eat it if we don't like what's going on.
Yeah, we before we had you on, we had a pretty good debate, and we were really just talking about how good Victor Hedman is. I mean, when he's at the top of his game, and when this guy is healthy, he's almost a unicorn. He's the best defenseman in the league. You have that same sentiment. Obviously, you're biased, but when you look at what he's capable of doing out there when he's healthy, is it just you try and get him as much ice as possible?
So the weird, like, if you watched the 5 overtime game, and then take for last night, for example. So we're down to 10 forwards, and that first overtime, like, we were dragging. Our tongues were dragging. I think we almost went 20 minutes without a shot from, like, late in the third to well into the overtime. The one guy that was, like, still leading the rush up and down the whole thing was Hedman. And some of those guys are blessed with that. I think of, like, Duncan Keith, back a few years ago, and some of those guys that can just play minutes at such a, I don't know, like, it's an amazing how they can keep that high level and do it. I actually look at, I look at somebody like Braden Point too. He's kind of like, the motor was always going with him. Like, he wasn't breaking down where other players were. And Hedman's one of those guys. And so when you're blessed kind of with that size, strength, speed, skill, and then the stamina he has, it's unreal that he's on your side. And so I think nobody was getting really any decent scoring chances at all in those, like, probably the last 15, 20 minutes of the game. But the guy that was Victor Hedman. And a big part of that was just because he's a gazelle. It was awesome to watch.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah,
well, congrats on a great run so far. Best of luck into the conference finals and your travels to Edmonton. And we're only 10 years away from my 20th anniversary, so I'm sure we'll get you back on well before that. But thank you for doing this today.
I'll be waiting by the phone.